So if you're like me, you've been using EasyBib for the past couple of years to generate citations for your writing. And that used to work just fine, but there's been a new wrinkle in the development of EasyBib that I want to tell you about, and I want to propose an alternative for you today. So first of all, if you go to easybib.com, you'll notice the homepage looks a little different than it used to look. You used to have a navigation menu if you were on our campus showing all the different links of databases we provided access to. You no longer see those. You'll also note up here in the banner that EasyBib is now designated a Chegg service. Now you may not know who Chegg is, but Chegg has been buying up citation generation websites for a couple of years now. Son of Citation Machine, Chegg service. BibMe, Chegg service. They're all owned by the same company, and you'll note that they're all just chock full of ads. And they say, join EasyBib Pro now, no advertisements. Well, let's test them on that. I'm going to log into my account, and you'll see now I'm logged in, and you'll note at the top it says Pro. But wait a second, here's an ad, and here's an ad, and here's another ad. And if we go back to the home page, you can see it still shows me as Pro, but it is still chock full of ads. Same ads as before. So this is a problem, first of all. Second problem is that EasyBib has pretty much stopped innovating. If you know anything about EasyBib, they were an internet startup and they had 30, 40 employees at an office in New York. When Chegg bought them out, they fired everybody but 2 people. So that means that there are only 2 people now replacing the functions of 40. And as you can imagine, that means that development is pretty much stopped. So they're not going to be releasing new features. They're not going to be releasing new utilities. They may not even keep track of updates in citation styles. So EasyBib's a sinking ship. We are going to jump ship. Instead, I'm going to propose an alternative today. And I think that when you see what it can do, you're going to really like it. So the alternative we're going to use is called Zotero. Now Zotero works a little differently than EasyBib. There is a web-based version of Zotero that looks a lot like EasyBib, but we're actually going to use a standalone version of Zotero, and we're going to use browser plugins to unlock some full potential of Zotero. And before I show you exactly how to install and configure Zotero and get it up and running, I instead want to show you what it can do. So this video is titled Zotero Sourcery, and I want to show you some examples of that sorcery. So for example, I'm in Microsoft Word here, and you'll note I have part of an extended essay that a student wrote several years ago. What I've done is I've taken out the footnotes, right? No footnotes. And I've highlighted the word before where the footnote should be. And now I'm going to use Zotero to insert those footnotes. So you'll note that in Microsoft Word, I have a plugin for Zotero, or I have it's an add-in and it's its own menu. On a Mac, you'd have to go to the add-ins menu. And I'm going to edit a citation, and I'm going to select the correct folder, and that was that source. Okay, you notice it put a 1 and it put a footnote. Okay, and I'll show you again how quickly it did that. So edit citation, and I believe that I want to use that source for that one, and then put the cursor here, and that one. And you'll note that it puts 3 properly formatted Turabian footnotes at the bottom of this page. So I'm working with Turabian in this case so that I can create footnotes. This is going to be useful for history. But wait, there's more. So at the end of a paper, you obviously have to put in a bibliography. What Zotero will do is it will know exactly what sources you've incorporated, and it will insert that bibliography for you. Now, is this perfect? No. I always need to make sure that I select everything, that I change the font, Times New Roman, 12 point, and I need to set the spacing of all my paragraphs at double. So, Times New Roman, 12 point font, 1-inch margins, double spaced. So I need to fix those things in my paper, but otherwise I have a properly formatted bibliography, and it was super simple to do. Now you may say, well, I don't do footnotes. I do parenthetical references. Maybe you use MLA, maybe you use APA. Well, here's another example from a paper that I wrote. So I've again highlighted the words where I should have a citation. So in this case, I'm going to go back to Zotero, and I've set my document preferences. I've set my citation style at APA. If I wanted to change that to Turabian, it would be very simple. So I've placed my cursor. I'm going to add edit citation. I'm going to go to that correct folder. This first one was Kister. This second one was Greenstein and Devereaux. Third one is Wilson, but you know in APA, you don't have to put the author name again in the parenthetical citation if you include it in the text. So I'm just going to suppress the author and put in the year. And then Shira is my last one, and that is properly formatted. And in APA, we call it references. But again, insert a bibliography, and there it is in APA format. Now, if you'll note, I actually had a fifth source in this folder that I didn't use, and it didn't put it in my bibliography or my references section because it realized that I didn't incorporate it as a parenthetical reference. So it automatically keeps track of what you're doing. And that's important because it is considered academic malpractice or dishonesty and sometimes plagiarism if you put sources in your references that you don't actually cite in the text of your paper. So this is a way to avoid that. And incidentally, if I add another citation like this, and I go ahead and add this Giles source that I hadn't used previously, you note that it automatically updated my references to include Giles immediately, and it alphabetized it properly. So at any time, if you add or remove a citation, I'd had to manually refresh there, it will keep things updated for you and keep things appropriately done. Now, that's how Zotero works in conjunction with Microsoft Word. I'm going to show you some other ways it works first. But first, I want to show you how to install it and configure it so you can do what I can do. I'm on Zotero.org. Zotero is a free product that is produced by this organization, and it's been around for almost 10 years now. And it is improved in different ways, shapes, and forms. It's not perfect. No free tool is ever perfect. But I think you're going to see that it's quite useful. So first, you want to go to Download Now. I want you to use the standalone version of Zotero. It will automatically detect what operating system you're using. So if you have Windows, it will say Download Zotero for Windows. If you have a Mac, it'll say Download Zotero for Mac. I want you to download and install the application. Now, please pause the video while you install it, and then once you've finished installing the desktop version of Zotero, which looks like this, I want you to play it again. Next, I want you to add a browser extension depending on which browser you're using. I'm personally using Chrome, and you see I've got Zotero browser extension already installed. If you're using Safari or Firefox, you can use those plugins, or plugin for Firefox or connector for Safari, and get that configured and going until you see a little icon up here for Zotero. If you're using a Mac, it may appear like over in this region, but you'll see it pop up. It may look like a Z on yours. Again, go ahead and pause the video and get that done. Now that you've done those two things, I want you to register for an account on Zotero.org. The reason I want you to do that is quite simple. Zotero will back up all of your work to the cloud. So they'll back up your citations, they will back up your journal articles, and in that case, I'll show you that in a moment. And then you can use that cross-platform, cross-devices. So for example, I can use Zotero on my desktop, on my laptop. If I break my laptop or if my laptop gets stolen, I can install Zotero on a new laptop and then configure it and recover all of my work. So that's why we want an account. So you'll need to register for an account, use your username, email address. I'd recommend your personal email address, because that way if you graduate from high school or graduate from college and lose access to that email address, you'll still have access to your personal email address and can reset your password. And then once you do that, it's going to prompt you to validate or verify your email. So I want you to pause this video, go into your email client, and then I want you to verify your email address so that you get your account activated. And then come back and take a look at what's next. Okay, so I'm in the standalone version of Zotero, and if you're using a Mac, it's going to look a little bit different, but you will have all of the things that I have. However, you won't have all the folders that I have. I have a bunch of folders over here from work I've actually done, demonstrations and actually papers that I've written. So I have collections over here that you don't have yet, but that's okay. Now what we want to do is we want to start by configuring Zotero, and there's a couple things we want to do. So we want to go into the Preferences menu. So click on the little gear, choose Preferences. First, I want you to go to Sync, and I want you to put in the username and password that you just created when you registered for a Zotero account. All these checkboxes should stay checked. Next, I want you to go to Site, and there's a couple things I want you to do. I want you to make sure that the Microsoft Word add-in is currently installed. Now, I haven't said this explicitly yet, but Zotero works very well with LibreOffice and Microsoft Word. It does not work with Google Docs. It does not work with Pages. I would suggest that you make the switch to Microsoft Word to write your papers. So make sure that that's installed properly. Make sure this checkbox is checked. By default, it is not, and you do want it checked. And then I want you to go to Styles, and we need to do a couple of things here. You have Modern Language Association 7th edition. Well, the 8th edition just came out in August. We need to update it. You don't have Turabian, which you're going to need. So let's choose Get Additional Styles. And I want you to put in the first couple of letters of the style you want. And we want Modern Language Association 8th edition. So we're going to click on it, and it's going to download it. And if we click on that file, mine says update, yours will say install, and if you choose install, that will install the MLA 8th edition. We could go back here and do the same thing with Turabian, which is also 8th edition. You want the full note version. When in doubt, choose the most recent style. See, this was updated in 2015, whereas this was 2013. So again, click on it, download it, click on the downloaded file, and install it. So that will give you the same styles that I have in terms of you'll have Turabian 8th edition and Modern Language Association 8th edition. You can delete Modern Language Association 7th edition just by selecting it, clicking this minus key, if you want to keep from being confused. So a quick word about citation styles. While you're in high school, you will use MLA for almost everything. When in doubt, MLA. If your teacher tells you otherwise, you'll use another style. For history, you will use Turabian. For psychology, you will use APA 6th edition. For every other class, sciences, languages, literature, you will use MLA unless your teacher tells you otherwise, okay? And then I want you to go to the export, and I want you to choose your default. For now, you might want to just set it to MLA 8th edition, and this default doesn't really matter too much because you can always change it in Microsoft Word later on. So we've finished configuring our preferences for the moment. Let's take a moment to talk about how to grab sources. So grabbing sources with Zotero is ridiculously easy. What you do is you open a web page, and there's a number of different web pages you can use. First, I'm going to go to the University of Houston. I'm going to go to their library catalog, and I'm going to look for books. I was looking at Thoreau earlier. Let's continue looking at Henry David Thoreau. So I have a list of books that are accessible at the University of Houston. And there's a number of different ways I can add these sources to Zotero. First, I could click on a specific record, and you'll notice the icon up here switch to a book. Zotero automatically recognizes that we're in a library catalog and that this metadata is information for a book. And then if I click on this little icon, you'll note that it is saving this reference to Zotero, and there it is. Now, is this 100% accurate, this metadata? Not always. And you may have to tweak it a little bit. You always want to check the bibliographic information and modify it. And Zotero is not going to remove or obviate your need to learn citation rules, whether it's for Turabian or APA or MLA. For example, in APA, the state should be the 2-letter abbreviation, like that. So I'd want to update that. And I just want to make sure that I get all the information right when I put it in. But it is a very quick way to get most of the information. And if I go back to the search results, there's an even faster way. I can actually go to the icon now, which recognizes that we're looking at a list of items, and I can just choose several items. Click on OK, and it's going to import all of them. Done. There they all are. Again, I want to make sure I get all the information correct, and it looks like I chose two of the same books. So you know what? I can just remove one really quickly. Right-click and choose delete, or just highlight it and hit your delete key. And there we go. So I have books in my project file, but the books came from a university library. What if I just want to get them from Google Books or Amazon or something like that? This is also possible. Go to Amazon. Choose a book. How about this one? So watch this icon up here. Watch it. See it switch to a book? It recognized that the metadata for this is a book, and now if we click on it, it becomes a book source. See the little book icon reflected here? So it added it in from Amazon, and it even provided me a link back to the record if I ever need to go back. Incidentally, this is called a parent item. This is called a child item. Sometimes when you import sources, they will create child items, and sometimes it will just be a parent item. It depends on the metadata that's available on that page. So don't worry too much about that right now. We can just look at the parent items. So I've got lots of books. Great. What about journal articles? So I've told you several times that one of my favorite places to look for journal articles is through JSTOR, which is a paid database which you can access for free, typically through your local public library. If not, if you're a university student, your university will provide access too. Some schools provide access, but JSTOR is quite expensive. For a small school, it could be $5,000 to provide access for all your students. So getting access for free through your local library is always a nice way to go about it. So I'm just going to take my same search term, and we're going to see they have a bunch of journal articles. And I could open the PDF and I could read it, but I could actually import this into Zotero. And that's going to do two things. First, it's going to take all this metadata, all this bibliographic information, and it's going to add it into my Zotero project folder. And second, and this is going to take a little longer, it will almost always download the full PDF for you and archive it in Zotero. Now I should tell you that those PDFs do take some storage space. Zotero gives you 300 megabytes of storage for free. That should be enough to do any single project. But if you're going to keep your work for Zotero for a number of projects, particularly over a couple of years, you may want to upgrade your Zotero account to get more storage. And you would have to do that on your own. I can also do the same thing I did last time. I can take these folder icons and I can simply click the sources I want, and I can grab them all and save them into my sources. And there they are. And you note also that it's grabbing the full text. So look, there I have all the metadata. I also have the full text, and it renames the file with the author's last name, the year, and then a short version of the title, just so that it makes sense. So it organizes it for you as well, which is really nice. Incidentally, if you ever wanted to reorganize it yourself, you could create a new collection, and then you could just drag things over into it. So you could sort things later on if you want to. By the way, if you ever want to create a working bibliography, you know, a teacher or professor says, well, show me what sources you're considering using. Select the first one, shift-click the last one, right-click and choose Create Bibliography from Items, choose your format, and just copy it to the clipboard, open Microsoft Word, and paste. And there they all are. Now, are they all absolutely correct? No. For example, this is all in all caps. We would want to change that. But it's a pretty good working bibliography. Okay, so we've grabbed journal articles from JSTOR. We can also grab journal articles from my other favorite place to get journal articles, which is Google Scholar. So again, Thoreau. And I'm getting a lot of books. And I'm also getting journal articles with the author name of Thoreau, but it's not about Thoreau himself. So I'm going to want to play around with my search here. Maybe I want to be a little more specific so that I get rid of scientific papers written by people other than Thoreau. And again, I don't necessarily want books about Thoreau because I got those from a library. Okay, let's say I want this particular file. I want this particular journal article. And I note that the PDF is freely available. I could click on it and I could download it. That's one thing I could do. Or I could just click on this folder icon again. I could choose it, choose OK, and it's going to do the same thing that it did with JSTOR. It's going to download that PDF and it's going to import the metadata, and there it is. So it renamed it automatically. So that's all done. So books, journal articles, and I know you're going to use websites as well. Websites are a little more iffy, and the reason that they're more iffy is because sometimes the creator of the website did not incorporate metadata, or sometimes the metadata is not available. For example, you know that when you access content online, sometimes it has an author listed, and sometimes it has a date that this information was published, but sometimes it doesn't. In this case, this website's done a good job of putting information online, so it's going to be easier for me to incorporate it as a source into my paper. One simple rule is, if a website doesn't have this information easily available, it's not as reputable, so you need to be careful about incorporating it into your writing. So I'm going to save this just like I would a book or journal article. Notice it recognizes that I'm working on a web page here. And if I go back to Zotero, I have a web page, and it also takes a snapshot of that web page. Now, did it capture all the information? No. I can see, for example, that it didn't find the author's name because the people who coded the website didn't specify that metadata, so I can fix that. And does it give me a website title? No. I can fix that too. You notice I'm just taking the information contained here and I'm just moving Zotero around so that I can see it. Does it contain the date that it was published? No, but I saw that earlier. It was 2015. And it does have the date added, or the date reference. That's automatic. Okay, so now I've pretty much incorporated all the information that I need to be able to create this in a bibliography. So I'm going to go back and understand that it's not going to be alphabetized with the other ones because this is a separate paste. But that gives me a fairly decent citation, in this case an APA. I am going to want to check and make sure that all that information is correct, and I would like to check it against the manual, but it gives me a good start. So I've grabbed sources. I have created bibliographies from them. There are a lot of things I've done, but I want to show you one other thing that Zotero can do if you incorporate an add-on. The add-on that we're going to use is called Zipfile. Zipfile is a plugin or an add-on designed to work with Zotero to improve its functionality, specifically working with PDFs. So I want you to download Zipfile, and I want you to just, don't click on it, I want you to just just move this folder to your desktop, somewhere that you're easily going to find. See, I have it right here, the XPI. I'm not going to click on it. Once you have that done, go ahead and pause the video while you get that done. Then I'm going to show you how to configure Zipfile. Okay, so I'm back in Zotero. So now that you've got Zipfile on your desktop, let's actually install it. So I'm going to go to the Tools menu. I'm going to choose Add-ons. If you're using a Mac, your Tools menu might be further up. Tools, Add-ons, and then I want you to click on this little gear icon and choose Install Add-on from File. Now we're going to browse to our desktop or wherever we save Zipfile, and we're just going to choose Open. And that's going to install Zipfile into Zotero. You may need to restart Zotero for it to activate. First, let's configure it. So now you'll note in your drop-down menu under the gear icon, you'll have Zipfile Preferences. We want to, you may not be using Firefox, you're going to need to set a different folder to work with Zipfile. I like to use my Downloads folder, but you can use whichever folder you like for that particular functionality. You will need to configure that if you're not using Firefox. Then, here's what we can do with Zipfile. What I have here is my list of sources that I was using earlier, and I have a PDF that I got from another source. And this PDF, I have annotated it. So this is the relationship between sleep and grades. And I have in Acrobat Reader, I have highlighted stuff. I've added little sticky notes to myself. I've done all sorts of things with this article because that's how I like to work with articles. But I want to generate note cards. Now, Zotero doesn't handle note cards the way EasyBib did. In fact, notes are a little clunkier, but I think you're going to see that they're pretty powerful. There is a way to create a note on an item. You can just choose this little note, and we're going to make it a child note, and we can type whatever we want. And that's going to become a note for this particular item. And you can manually create notes if you want. You could create a bunch of note cards this way. Or if it's a PDF and you've annotated it, we can actually use Zipfile to do that automatically. So I've just dragged and dropped it into Zotero. And now what I want to do is I want to choose, I'm right-clicking, I choose Manage Attachments, Extract Annotations. And what it's going to do, and this is going to take a little bit depending on the size of your file and the number of notes you have, what it's going to do is it's going to make this a parent item. It's going to put the study here, and it's going to extract all the annotations. So all the highlights and all the comments that I created get transferred into one note. Now this is something like 40 different annotations. So essentially like 40 note cards, and it combined them all into one. But that's fine. And it also put the page number that that note or that highlight came from. So Zotfile is a very quick and easy way then to extract annotations, because what I like to do is I like to take these journal articles and I like to work with them in Adobe Acrobat Reader, and I use the comment toolbar. So Tools, Comment, and that puts the comment toolbar on my environment here, and then I can highlight sentences like this, or I can add a sticky note right there. And whatever sticky notes you use and however they look, that depends on your preferences, how you want to use annotations. But as I'm reading journal articles, this is how I work with them. I highlight, I annotate, I add comments, and then later on I just extract them all in Zotero or using Zipfile into one big note card. And that gets into workflow. So that gets into workflow. I want to organize my work, grab a bunch of sources. I want to work with PDFs, and then I just want to break it up into manageable chunks by saying, okay, for this session, I'm going to annotate a certain journal article and extract the notes into Zotero, and that's all I'm going to do. And the next session, I'll do that with a chapter of a book or with another journal article. Now, have I shown you everything that you can do with Zotero? No, I haven't. There are a couple of other things it can do, but this will certainly get you started. And then if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. I hope you found this insightful. I hope you find Zotero useful in writing your own papers. I think when you spend time working on it yourself, you'll see how powerful and easy it is to work with. For right now, the learning curve is pretty steep, but I promise you that if you use Zotero for one paper and get it all figured out, afterward you'll have it down and it'll be easy. And I think you will see that it is like magic.